platform, and we always love having you on DaveJanda.com and our Operation Freedom show. Our listenership goes nuts every time you come on because you are so articulate and so analytical in your presentations.
We have a good chat every time, so I always enjoy.
I do too.
So let's touch on the voter fraud fallout. Okay, so the big thing on my mind is that Q had, for those who follow Q, he had kind of predicted this 53-47 way back at the Kavanaugh situation. And then recently his last post on the 12th or the 13th, if I'm recalling, is also the same thing, 53-47. And that's some insane amount of foreknowledge right there. That's even for Q standards, that's particularly impressive. But even aside from that, we're starting to see investigations. We're starting to see kind of justice in at least some of these situations, but they're still, they seem to have gotten away with some of it. What do you think?
I think they've gotten away with a lot of it, unfortunately, and it continues to this day. And you pointed this out in some of our previous discussions, Dustin, and many people are saying, well, Trump is making this big deal that it's 53-47, and this really isn't such a huge change from he had 51 votes before. Well, as you and I have discussed, he didn't have 51 votes before. He had McCain in there, he had Flake in there, and he had Corker in there. And that doesn't include Olivia Snow and Murkowski from Alaska. So, at a max, at an absolute max, he had 48, maybe even 46 going in.
Yeah.
And now, so he still has Murkowski there. He still has Snow there, but Snow came through big on the Kavanaugh event. So now he's up to 53. And this is, I think, important because, as you and I have also discussed previously, the power right now, as far as investigatory power, is going to come to the Senate. And we just heard that Grassley's going to give up the gavel in charge of the Judiciary Committee and hand that over to Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, I had some huge problems with Lindsey Graham in the past. I really had.
Oh, lately.
I really had him pegged as a globalist. I had him as going hand in hand with John McCain. I was not a fan of John McCain. I felt John McCain was a globalist of the nth power. Probably wreaked more havoc than anyone I know that's currently in the Senate worldwide. There wasn't a war that man didn't like. There wasn't an event that didn't lead to mass chaos or killing that he wasn't involved with. And I'm not, some people will now accuse me of speaking ill of the dead. No, I'm just speaking factually of a person who I believe.
I'll speak ill for you. He was a bad guy.
Yeah, he really was, in my opinion. And I felt that Graham was hand in hand with him. Now, it just so happens that when McCain left the scene, Lindsey Graham, best way to describe it, flipped. And if his presentation in the Kavanaugh initial hearing, where he brought up the issue of military tribunals, to me was a hallmark event. Because I did some research on it, Dustin, and I am unaware of military tribunals being brought up at a Supreme Court justice's hearing in the history of our country.
Yeah, why even bring that up if you don't need it?
That's right. And you'll notice when he did bring it up, the other side that's always so vocal, the Bookers, the Feinsteins, were dead silent. Dead silent. And it was very soon after that discussion, that very lengthy 5-minute discussion occurred in Kavanaugh's hearing. It was very soon after that we first started to get wind of Christine Blasey Ford. And up until that, remember, Feinstein had been sitting on that information for 7 weeks at that point. But then all of a sudden, it was after what Graham had brought up. And I believe what Graham did at that hearing was he put the globalist syndicate and their puppets on notice. Yeah, we have a criminal justice system, but we also have the military tribunal system for treason, for sedition. And Kavanaugh confirmed that. And I believe that's why they came out so vehemently and violently against Kavanaugh. And then Lindsey Graham backed that up when they had that secondary hearing about Blasey Ford. And as we all know how Lindsey Graham came forward and said, wait a minute, this is a Clarence Thomas type of lynching going on here, and this has got to stop. So the fact that we have Lindsey Graham now going to take the gavel from Grassley, I believe, is a positive development. A year ago, Dustin, I would have said it's a very negative development. Mm-hmm. And I believe this is something that is an indication of what's happening behind the scenes. I believe what's happening behind the scenes is a number of these former globalist players are starting to play ball with the Trump team, the nationalists. Now, and again, they're trying to denigrate the term nationalist. We see this time and time again, whether it's an NPR reporter asking the question, and they always try to frame it as a white nationalist issue, as you're aware, which is nothing of the sort.
Or at least paint it as racist. And last I checked, American is not a race. So
correct. So the bottom line is that with this election, I believe the Trump team's goal was to enhance the position of Trump and his team within the Senate. Mm-hmm. And I believe that occurred.
Yeah.
And I believe that has the deep state, the globalist syndicate, very upset.
To reinforce some of your points, we still have Flake in office, and he's still trying to sabotage things, even though he's supposed to be a Republican. And right after the Kavanaugh situation, we had Hillary going on long multi-tweet rants on Twitter, just trying to bash Kavanaugh nonstop. You could tell there was fear.
Absolutely. And remember, we also have Paul Ryan, who is a globalist player that's still trying to undermine what the House potentially can do in this, if you will, lame duck position at this point. Paul Ryan, good riddance. Mm-hmm. Don't let the door hit you on your way out. But Paul Ryan, I believe, his final assignment by the globalist syndicate, by the deep state, was to hold back the House and their investigatory abilities as long as possible to, if you will, prevent the Trump team from making any inroads in the election as it relates to the House. Dustin, Greg Hunter pointed out to me that there were 44 Republican House members that did not seek re-election.
Yeah.
Now, first of all,
included.
Right now, isn't that interesting? So right now, they have the White House, they have the Senate, they had the House, yet 44. So this is as good as it gets, right? Mm-hmm. 44 of these folks walked away.
And for example, just to highlight Ryan, he's a young guy. He didn't just lose all of his ambition. Why would he do something like this? People in power don't typically step down. And we've seen not even just there, but thousands of people step down since that executive order from Trump, mm-hmm. Declaring basically a state of emergency and going after the assets of those involved in corruption and human trafficking last December. So it is a little telling.
Right. Hollywood, high tech, Wall Street, Washington. These are the hubs that the globalist syndicate have developed over many decades' time. So the fact that these people would leave, to me, was an indication. But here's where Paul Ryan stepped in. And Greg Hunter pointed this out to me, and I actually felt he was wrong. And then talked to some of my behind-the-curtain sources about it, and they confirmed it. 39, as of August 7th, 39 of those open seats, essentially, Ryan and the Republican Party had not placed anyone of significance in 39 of those districts.
Default wins, yeah.
Default wins. So you say, well, what about the Dems? Well, the Dems only had 3 districts that they hadn't had somebody well placed. And in those 39 districts, some of those, they ended up having some people running those districts, but they weren't financed. They weren't given support staff. Essentially, they were handed over. So the fact that Trump, I believe the globalist plan was Trump was going to lose 60 to 70 to 80 House seats. And we all know election night, right? It looked like it was going to be about 25 to 27, and they needed 23. And now all of a sudden it's up in the low to mid 30s. And this is the voter fraud you were talking about, Dustin. You know, I saw it as three phases. There was the before phase, before the election phase of voter irregularities, fraud, the during the election phase, and then the after. And in the before phase, and this was documented in Georgia, you know, a couple days before the election, again, right? On Zero, Georgia investigating Democrats for allegedly hacking voting system. Georgia Secretary of State and Republican gubernatorial candidate Brian Kemp revealed on Sunday, 2 days before the election, that his office is opening an investigation of the Georgia Democratic Party on allegations that it attempted to hack the state's voting system, including allegations of possible cybercrimes. Well, I can tell you, the Monday, the day before the election, the night before, I got a call from two of my sources that the exact wording was a direct quote, staggering number of voting machines have been taken down, end quote. And the reason is because they ran some testing protocols on voting machines across the country. And according to my sources, in every state, there were voting machines that had preset votes in favor of the Democrats. These machines, I quote, staggering number across the country, were impounded, were taken offline, were put under guard, new certified machines were put in their place. So the before is what we were talking about with this Georgia governor or Secretary of State gubernatorial candidate saying, wait a minute, there's some machine issues here. My sources confirmed that, but not just in Georgia, all over every state, I was told. So there we had the before. During, James O'Keefe's great work, right, in Texas, of these poll workers, you know, hey, we have some illegal folks here, but they want to vote. I'll bring them in. We're having a lot of folks.
A lot of those, yeah.
Right. But I believe one of the biggest issues with voter fraud dealt with voter suppression. And I hang that on Fox News and the night of the election. Now, Dustin, you are not a fan of Fox News.
No,
I have not been a fan of Fox News. And in fact, I have gotten a tremendous amount of blowback over the years over my saying that when you look at the bought-off lamestream fake media, that some people still call the mainstream media, it's like going into a Baskin-Robbins ice cream store. And there's the CNN flavor, and then there's and it's all owned. That Baskin-Robbins store is all owned by the globalist syndicate, the deep state. And you have the CNN flavor and the MSNBC flavor, but you also have the Fox flavor. And they're all part of the globalist syndicate. Dustin?
They're all bad for you.
Right. I have gotten such blowback over that. And people say, well, what about Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham? Okay.
Limited truths, yeah.
Right. So they're kind of, right, limited hangout position shows, right? They get some information out, but when push comes to shove, where are they? Many of the issues you speak about, that I speak about in Operation Freedom on DaveJanda.com, you'll never see it on Fox. So they want people to think you're getting the rest of the story, the rest of the entire story from Fox, when in fact, maybe you're getting 5% more of the story, but 85% of it is left behind to make you think, to try to prevent you from looking there.
Like Carlson's position on 9/11, exactly.
Right. Or you know, remember Sean Hannity? He was talking about the issues as it relates to the Russian hack, which was really a leak, and he started to bring up the issue of Seth Rich. Remember that?
Hard, yeah. All
of a sudden, he was off the air for a little bit, right? And next thing you know, he's back on and he's not talking about it. Gone. But on election night, this is where it was really, I believe, sinister and confirmed everything, all of your thoughts and my thoughts over the years about Fox. At about 9:20, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, and Bloomberg all came out and said, you know how we were expecting this big win in the House for the Democrats? Well, that's not happening, and we're pulling back off of it. Then 9:20.
Mm-hmm.
And what it did is it set the stage for Fox. So this was all coordinated. This is all a little dance going on. And at 9:30, all of a sudden, they come back from, I was watching Fox Business News, which was tied into Fox News. And all of a sudden, they come out and they said, 9:30, the Dems, big banner, the Dems have won the House. At the time, Dustin, they needed 23 seats. They were up 2. At the time, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 on the West Coast, there were over 250 open elections going on. Well, and it's interesting because Lou Dobbs, who actually I think is a straight shooter, he's the only guy I think on Fox who, and I think it's because he's older and he can kind of let it fly. But all of a sudden, Lou Dobbs says, wait a minute, what's this all about? What are they doing back there? Why are they calling this at 9:30? Because we were just talking about this and everything was really close. What happened in the last 2 minutes? Well, let me tell you what I think what happened in the last 2 minutes, because previously I had some experience being on some Fox shows and a number of shows in the mainstream media, at least many years ago, and I still have contacts there. He said, this was pure voter suppression. Because by getting it out at 9:30, that's 6:30 Pacific time, polls were going to be open for at least another hour and a half, in some cases 2.5 hours. And there were a number of people that I believe the Dems wanted to get rid of and prevent from coming back into office, such as Dana Rohrabacher, who ended up losing his. And I believe the guy they were really targeting that they didn't get was Nunes. I believe they were targeting Nunes with what they did here, along with several other Senate races, right? Because the Montana race was still going on. The Arizona race was still going on. But and who watches Fox? What a better place to target conservatives, independents, libertarians might be watching Fox. So they directed their weapon here, if you will, at